At the funeral of one of the most famous pastors in America, something happened that no one expected. A son stood up to honor his father, but his words were erased from history, scrubbed from the official videos, hidden from the world. Why? And what does this say about the legacy of John MacArthur, the man who spent his life preaching truth yet left behind a funeral wrapped in secrecy? John MacArthur, the legendary pastor of Grace Community Church and founder of Grace to You, died on July 14, 2025, at the age of 86. His memorial service was broadcast to thousands around the world. But what those watching online didn't know was that a key piece of the funeral was missing. His son, Mark MacArthur, disgraced years earlier for his role in a $16 million investment fraud scheme, gave a heartfelt, unscripted eulogy. It lasted 15 minutes. It was raw, emotional, and for many in the audience, it was the most powerful moment of the entire service. But when Grace to You uploaded the official funeral video to their YouTube channel, Mark's eulogy was gone, completely edited out, as if it never happened. So tonight, we ask the uncomfortable question: why deny a son the chance to mourn his father in peace? On August 23, 2025, Grace Community Church held John MacArthur's memorial service. According to the official program, only one son was supposed to speak: Matt MacArthur. Matt is the responsible son. He's been the treasurer of Grace to You for decades, sits on multiple ministry boards, and manages much of the family's financial interests. In many ways, Matt represents the safe, respectable face of the MacArthur legacy. But there's another son, Mark. Mark MacArthur, who once sat on the GTY board for years, but whose name vanished in 2020 after the SEC charged him with defrauding investors in a $16 million scheme. In 2023, Mark paid $367,000 in penalties to settle the case. Since then, his presence around GTY and GCC has been almost non-existent. The funeral program reflected that divide. Matt had a dedicated slot. Mark did not. But grief doesn't follow programs. And on that Saturday, after Matt delivered his polished tribute and singer Jubilant Sykes was about to take the stage, Mark MacArthur walked up to the podium. Unannounced. For 15 minutes, he poured out his heart about his father, the legendary preacher, the strict but loving dad, and the man who, even in his final breaths, reminded his sons to live for Christ. The congregation heard it. The live stream caught it. But in the official archive, it's gone. Mark's words were not bitter. They weren't defiant. They were the words of a grieving son. He recalled a defining moment from his teenage years. At just 18, his father asked him a piercing question: "Are you ready to die?" Mark admitted he had never thought about it until that day. That single conversation, he said, changed the way he viewed life and eternity. Years later, as his father lay in the ICU, weak and struggling, Mark turned the same question back on him. "Dad, are you ready to die?" John MacArthur's reply was chilling, yet filled with peace. "Yes, I'm tired. It's a long ways back. I can barely talk. I cannot sing. And I'll never preach again. I want to breathe celestial air. I want to see Christ." Mark then shared one of the most intimate moments of his life. On the Saturday before John MacArthur passed away, Mark and his brother Matt stood beside their father. Together, they prayed what he called the most painful and most joyful prayer a son could ever utter. They asked God to bring their father home, and 2 days later, John MacArthur stepped into eternity. It wasn't scandal, it wasn't controversy, it was raw faith. A son remembering a father. A son honoring the man who shaped him. And yet, that moment was erased. When the official funeral video went live on Grace to You's YouTube channel, viewers noticed something strange. Matt MacArthur finished his eulogy, exited the podium from stage right, and suddenly, singer Jubilant Sykes appeared from the same spot. But in the live stream, something else happened between those two moments. Mark MacArthur's 15-minute tribute. In the edited version, Mark is seen quietly walking to his seat as if nothing happened. His eulogy, the rawest, most personal part of the entire service, was gone. Grace to You, a ministry that claims to stand for truth and unfiltered biblical preaching, made an editorial choice: erase the disgraced son. But why? While GTY silenced Mark on their channel, the internet did not. A smaller YouTube channel, Curious and Wise, uploaded the missing eulogy. Mark's wife, Erica MacArthur, then shared it on Facebook, writing, "Thank you, Curious and Wise, for sharing what was the highlight of my father-in-law's service. My husband, Mark MacArthur, not only honored his dad, John MacArthur, so sincerely and eloquently, but he honored Christ as well. I'm so thankful to be able to share this heartfelt and sweet moment with my friends and family. I love you, Mark, and so proud of you." For Erica, this wasn't about scandal or image management. It was about memory, about family, about a moment too sacred to be deleted. But the clash was now undeniable. One son's words preserved by strangers on YouTube, while his own father's ministry cut him out of history. This decision has only deepened speculation about a long-standing family divide. On one side, Matt MacArthur, the safe steward of the ministry, deeply entrenched in GTY, the John MacArthur Charitable Trust, and the Masters University. He holds the financial reins. On the other, Mark MacArthur, the son tainted by scandal, stripped of board positions after the SEC charges, pushed into the shadows. Former GCC members and insiders commented online, hinting at tensions. One ex-member noted that Matt holds the dollar bags and suggested she didn't blame Mark for going rogue to honor his father anyway. Matt MacArthur is on all the boards and holds the dollar bags, GTY, TMU, MacArthur Trust, etc. Fred says the family put together the program, and it listed Matt MacArthur as the only family member speaking. I don't blame Mark one iota for going rogue and speaking. Anyway, this wasn't just about who got to speak at a funeral. This was about which son gets to carry the MacArthur legacy forward. Here's where the controversy sharpens. Why allow Alistair Begg, a pastor John MacArthur had recently rebuked for supporting attendance at a same wedding, to speak, yet try to silence John's own son? Why allow guest speakers like John Piper, Joni Eareckson Tada, Sinclair Ferguson, Keith and Kristen Getty to take the stage, but erase the voice of the man who prayed his father into eternity? If the gospel is about grace, forgiveness, and truth, what does it mean to scrub a son's love because it doesn't fit the polished image of the ministry? Once the edit became obvious, backlash began. Social media lit up with questions. Why deny a son the chance to mourn his father in peace? Why edit out the one moment that felt the most human? The pressure grew, and eventually, Grace to You responded. On their YouTube channel, they uploaded the full version of the funeral, including Mark's surprise eulogy. But on the Grace Community Church YouTube channel, the edited version still remains. In other words, two narratives now exist online. One where Mark's voice is heard, and one where it's erased. It raises a haunting question. Why would the same ministry family push out two different realities of the same event? In life, John MacArthur built a reputation as a defender of uncompromising truth. He often stood against cultural tides, insisting that nothing should be hidden when it came to God's word. But in death, the management of his own funeral tells a different story. Instead of transparency, we see image control. Instead of grace, we see silence. The bigger question: will the MacArthur Empire, GTY, Grace Community Church, the Masters Seminary, the Masters University, continue in the spirit of truth John MacArthur preached, or in the spirit of censorship his funeral revealed? Which version represents the real MacArthur legacy? The unfiltered truth, or the carefully curated image? At the end of the day, funerals aren't about programs, public relations, or ministry image. They are about grief, about memory, about family. Mark MacArthur may have stumbled in life. He may have carried scandal, but on that day he was simply a son mourning his father. And if the church cannot allow even that moment of raw humanity to stand, then maybe the question we should be asking isn't, why was Mark's eulogy scrubbed? Maybe it's this: has the institution of Grace to You become bigger than the grace it claims to preach? Has the MacArthur Empire become divided between grace and control, and which side will define its future?